Do you yearn to make your living from writing fiction? Do you struggle to finish your manuscript due to block, indecision, or lack of confidence in your story? Have you already published books that just aren't getting the sales you'd like? The truth is, the thing that really makes a difference in book sales is not currently being taught in the fiction author space. And it comes from the story level, not the marketing level. Real talk, if you don't get it right at the story level, no amount of awesome marketing is going to make your book a bestseller. Hi, I'm Liesl. I've got 20 fiction books, 4 genres, the USA Today bestseller accolade, and multiple award wins under my belt. So, obviously I've been around the block a few times. I have a lot of readers that follow me from genre to genre, even though conventional wisdom says that's rare. Why? Because my readers know that I know how to tell a story that's going to make them feel something. And if you can master that skill, you can write anything you want for the rest of your life and know it will be well received by readers, which means better reviews, more gushing, more mega fans, and best of all, more royalties for you. Grab your fuzzy slippers and your chocolate of choice. I'm going to teach you how to emotionally engineer your story into the hearts and minds of your readers on purpose. Let's go. I want to start by asking, what are the problems with getting our books written? Tell me in the chat. We're not really talking here about marketing or editing per se, but when it comes to actually writing your story, what are the major problems that you or other authors run into? Can you put that in the chat for me? All right, plot holes. Yep. Maintaining momentum, procrastination, schedule. Yep. Knowing my characters well enough to tell their story. Ooh, I like that. That's a good one, Bonnie. Finding time to write and staying on track. B says, I'm a pantser, so loads of issues. That's funny. I like that. Lack of time, staying focused. Okay, good. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, these are, I kind of wrote down some of them I came up with. These are the same thing you guys are doing, figuring out your story or your characters in some way, getting your ideas down, getting stuck or blocked, indecision, not being able to figure out what happens next. There's a lot of confidence issues too, right? Fear that your writing or your story or your characters aren't good enough. We've all dealt with these kinds of issues. And these are like the major problems that we deal with when trying to get our story written. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the study of energetics, and we're going to kind of incorporate that into writing. I don't know if anybody knows what energetics is. I'm going to tell you right now that some of the concepts I'm about to teach you, I can pretty much guarantee you've never heard before. Okay, this workshop is not going to be your run-of-the-mill, you need to make your characters three-dimensional. You need to follow the hero's journey. Okay, this is going to be something completely different that most of you will have never heard before because nobody else really teaches this. People teach energetics and people teach fiction writing. They usually don't combine them, but that's what I do. Now, energetics is just coming into the mainstream. If you don't know what energetics is, it literally just means the study of energy, but it usually encompasses things like neuroscience, NLP, meditation, manifestation, universal laws, and much more. 20 or 30 years ago, energetics was considered fringe and woo-woo, but that's not the case anymore. It's coming into the mainstream now. And the reason for that, why that's happening, is because for the most part, it's been proven to be correct. The woo-woo people from yesteryear turned out to be right about a lot of things. Maybe not all across the board, but a lot. And now there's 2 reasons that it's becoming more mainstream now. The first is that we have better technology to measure energy. So scientists can't really deny the existence of energetics anymore. And the internet has allowed a lot of fringe knowledge to be spread to much larger audiences than, before the internet was a thing. So people are becoming a lot more aware of it. So what does all of that have to do with fiction writing? Well, the first mistake we're going to talk about is writing your story from your conscious or logical mind. This is a mistake. Some of you may know exactly what I mean when I say this, but a lot of you are probably thinking, okay, what the heck is she talking about? What does that mean, writing your story from your logical mind? But don't worry, I will explain. I'm just taking a quick look at the chat here. Yeah, okay. If you have questions, by the way, feel free to put them in the chat and I will answer them at the end. I can promise you that all of you have either done this, meaning you've written your story or tried to write your story from your conscious mind, or are still doing it. I certainly have. It's something that most authors do by default, and we're not usually aware that we're doing it, but I'm going to make you very aware of it today. So neuroscience and energetics tells us that we have two minds. I mean, it's technically three, but we're only going to be talking about two of them today. The first is our conscious mind. Our conscious mind is the seat of our logic. It's what we use to get everything done every day. It's what we're consciously aware of and can bring to the center of our attention and focus on. So our to-do list, getting out of bed, making meals, taking the kids to school, going to work, all of that stuff, whatever we're consciously focused on in the moment, that's coming from our conscious mind. So when you think about your brain and you think about your thoughts, it becomes existential really quickly, you're usually thinking about your conscious mind. The second mind is our subconscious mind. Sub means below. The subconscious mind, it is below the conscious mind and it is below our awareness. Okay, so you guys have heard these things about subconsciously being aware of something or not aware of something. It's the things that operate in the background that we're not actually focused on or actually aware of minute to minute. Our subconscious mind is the seat of our creativity, our emotions, and our spirits. Why is it so important to consider these things when it comes to writing fiction? What do you guys think? Why would it be important? Tell me in the chat. Why would it be important to consider our subconscious minds when it comes to writing fiction, especially given everything I just told you, that it's the seat of our creativity, the seat of our emotions? What do you think? Why would that be relevant to fiction writing? Frees you from the limits of what you know, yes. So we're not inhibiting our character's actions. Okay, interesting. Stronger, more visceral connection with the reader. Yes, very much so. Fiction speaks directly from our creative brains to our readers' emotions. Yes, you guys are smart. You're picking it up. Show empathy and emotions. Our brain needs the freedom to play and create and come up with novel ideas, pun intended. Love it, Sarah. Love it. Great, great. You guys are awesome. You're on the ball. Okay, so yes. Your creativity and emotions, both of which you obviously need to write your fiction, live in the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you've never used your subconscious mind to write your stories. Trust me, you would have to, because it's where your creativity lies. Anytime you come up with a great idea or have a flash of inspiration, that all comes from your subconscious mind. So you definitely do use it. But let me ask you this. Have you ever sat around trying to force yourself to think of what comes next in your book, trying to think of the ending or the next scene, and you just can't come up with anything? Has that ever happened to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alternatively, have you maybe tried to use templates like The Hero's Journey or Save the Cat, or whatever your favorite set of plot points are, or any other plotting system, and you either trying to force your story into that template and either you couldn't, or maybe you did, but it just didn't feel quite right? Has anyone ever had that experience? Or have you dealt with block, indecision, or one of those things where you're just sitting around waiting for inspiration to strike? Getting yes, lots of yeses, yes to all, and lots of LOLs. Yep. All right, good. If you answered yes to any of these, and any writer worth their salt definitely would, we have all been there. Just know that you aren't alone. Everyone deals with these things at some point. But these things, the fact that everybody deals with them, is exactly how I know that you've been trying to write your story from your conscious mind, at least in part. So, because every one of these things, every one of the things that you listed in the chat at the beginning as well, is a result of trying to use logic to write a creative story. Logic comes from the conscious mind, and your creativity is in your subconscious mind. So when you get blocked, when you don't know what comes next in your story, when you have story indecision about something, it's because you're trying to force your story logically, which means you're trying to write it from the conscious mind. You just didn't realize that's what you were doing, okay? It's really important to understand that concept. I want you to know that the language of the universe when it comes to emotions, or when it comes to energetics, is what I meant to say, is emotion. All that means is that we as human beings should be using our emotion, our feelings to discern truth, not our logical minds. But most of us don't do that. So we use our emotions to discern truth, and logical thoughts actually just regurgitate back things we already know. Now, that's not a bad thing by any means. There are different functionalities for both sides of our brain. But when it comes to writing fiction, we want to write our soul truth, right? We don't want to regurgitate back other stories that we've heard. So again, how do we tie this all into fiction writing? First, I want you to understand that there is a well of creativity that is full of your uniqueness in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind also houses your memories, your beliefs, your experiences, all the unique lenses through which you view or have viewed the world. And those things are going to color how you write your stories. And that's a good thing. It's your author voice. It's going to come from your subconscious mind, and it's going to bleed naturally into your character voices. This is what gives you your own unique creativity. So we all know that there are no truly unique stories, right? We're all aware of that. The uniqueness comes from your author voice and in the way that you spin the details and the way that you put emotion into the story. And all of that is going to come directly from your subconscious mind. I always like to say that I could give every single one of us, every single one of you listening to my voice, either live or in the replay, the exact same story outline, same characters, same plot events, everything. And we would all come back with a completely different book. I mean, yeah, maybe the character and place names would be the same. And we could see that, a lot of the events lined up, but we would all approach it so differently that it would be completely different for all of us. And that's because of our subconscious minds. It's where our creative identity lives. I used to say that it's not possible to write your story from your conscious mind at all, but that I have learned is not exactly true. The reason I thought that is, again, because there's no creativity in your conscious mind. And that is true. There is no creativity in your conscious mind. So how could you do anything creative with your conscious mind? Well, you can't, but technically you could still write a story using your logical creative mind. But here's the problem. If we're, writing a story, as you can see, I put that in quotes, and you're using your logic, then it's not coming from your subconscious creativity. Instead, it's just coming from your logical mind. And all we're doing then is in some way regurgitating bits and pieces of stories that we've already consumed. Now, I don't mean to say that if you do this, you're purposely plagiarizing anything, but this is why sometimes when you try to force your story into a template, it just feels flat. It feels blah. And it's very easy to write to a cliche that way. That's because that's not coming from your true subconscious creativity. It's coming from your logical mind, and you're kind of just regurgitating things that you picked up from other stories. So there's not as much emotion or oomph to it. There's not as much that's uniquely you. And again, it's really neither good or bad. I'm not bashing it. It's just that we're not being our most creative selves, and we're much more likely, as I said, to write to a cliche. So when it comes to telling a story that is truly and uniquely ours, when it comes to getting that part of ourselves and our story out onto the page, the part that we yearn to share so desperately with the world, that has to come from our subconscious minds. Now, like I said, I think you've used your subconscious mind somewhat, a little. Probably a mixture of the two is how most people write, because that's just naturally what they do. But true inspiration comes from your subconscious. Forcing things or using logic comes from your conscious. So this is what's known as an invisible element of story, an invisible cause, if you will. It's something that very few authors are aware of. And in my opinion, it is one of the biggest reasons that so many authors today are writing books that are not selling. Yes, of course, there are a host of reasons for mediocre sales, but this is one that is not well understood in the author space. And you can have excellent marketing, excellent book cover, all other things being equal. If you are writing a story from your logic and your conscious mind instead of your subconscious mind, it is not going to sell, or at least not nearly as well as one that comes wholly from your subconscious mind. Okay, so it is an important element that people are not aware of and are not talking about. Books written from the logic are automatically going to be less creative, less emotional, more likely to fall flat, be cliche, or be seen as repetitive and ripped off from another story. And this naturally is just not going to sell as well. I'm sure you understand why. So don't get me wrong. Once again, we all know there are no new stories, and that by itself is not the problem. The emotion and the detail that you put into your story that makes it uniquely yours comes from your subconscious mind. So without that, the story really will be redundant and cliche because your uniqueness has not gone into it. That's a problem. And please understand that despite everything I've already said, I'm really not against templates. In fact, I kind of love templates. I geek out about them. I think they're wonderful. I think they have a lot of value. But most people just don't use them correctly. And it's very easy to use them as a crutch and write a cliched story if you aren't being mindful about this. So just something to keep in mind. So how do we fix this mistake? How do we tell the difference? How do we know when we're writing from our logical conscious mind versus our creative subconscious mind? Well, first, you need to understand that you actually can switch back and forth between your conscious and unconscious minds or subconscious minds. And you do it all the time, even outside of writing. So I'm going to give you some examples so that you understand what this feels like, because you do it all the time. I want you to think about reading a book. Obviously, we all love to read, right? Read stories. So imagine yourself sitting in your favorite reading spot, on your couch, in your favorite chair, on your bed, wherever it is you love to read, and reading your favorite story, whatever that is. And think about the experience of actually getting lost in that story. You're reading the words, but really the story is playing out in your head like a movie, right? You can see it, you can feel it, you're experiencing it with the five senses. And think about your surroundings when you do that. It's not like they go away. It's not like you're unaware of them. You still know that you're in your favorite chair, that you're in this room of your house, wherever it is. But all of that has just kind of taken a back burner and the story is front and center. That's what you're focusing on, right? Now imagine that, let's say that you're in your bedroom. I'm just going to pick a place, and something in the next room next to you, the kitchen, say, goes crash. A dish breaks, somebody drops something. It immediately yanks you out of the story and back into the present, and you have to jump up and go see what happened, right? And then once you've got that all squared away, make sure everything's okay, you come back and you can get right back into the story again. This is you transitioning between your conscious and subconscious minds. Being in the moment, in the room you're in, attending to the crash, all of that is your logical mind attending to what needs to hold your focus in that moment. But when you get lost in the story and you're experiencing the story and the emotion and the five senses and the just whole immersive experience of the story, that is your subconscious mind taking over. So you can see that it's very easy to switch between the two, and we do it all the time. That's the way it's supposed to be. We're built that way. Okay. Another good example of this would be driving home or driving any route that you know pretty well. Usually it comes driving to or from work, to or from the stores that we go to, anywhere that you drive a lot. I'm sure every one of us have had the experience of driving home, and the whole time we were like letting our mind wander, thinking of different things, maybe listening to an audiobook or music on the radio. And then when you get home, you realize you don't actually remember driving home. Like if you had that experience where you go, did I run any red lights? Did I like obey the traffic laws? And you did, but it's just that you were on autopilot, right? When your mind is wandering like that, you're kind of surrendering to your subconscious. You're letting it wander. You're thinking about things, especially if you're listening to music or a story, you're letting that play out in your head. And that means that your conscious mind, which controls the driving, is just on autopilot. It's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere, but you know how to do everything so well. So naturally, because you've done it so many times, that it's just, you can do it on autopilot. Okay, so those are both examples of how you switch between the two. And if you think about what that feels like to get lost in the subconscious, that will be very helpful. Because if you can do that when you write your story, then you already know what this feels like and kind of how to put your brain into subconscious mode. So how can you tell that you are writing from the subconscious mind? It's going to feel forced if you're using your logic, right? You don't feel much emotion around it. You might feel reason and logic and maybe a little bit of emotion, but you're not going to feel a ton of emotion. This is when you're going to keep getting blocked or hitting indecision. It feels frustrating. It feels stressful. You're feeling uncertain and lack of confidence, all of that. On the flip side, if you're writing from your subconscious mind, you're going to feel the opposite. The ideas are going to flow really, really well. Okay. You're not going to get stuck, and you're not going to have to force anything. It feels good. You feel a lot of emotion. You feel emotion as you're writing and planning, and it flows very easily. It just doesn't feel forced. Now, I'm going to give you a tool today. It's part of your homework to help you tap into your subconscious mind. I'm going to tell you all about what it is at the end. We've got the rest of the mistakes to go through first, but a big part of your homework is going to be to use this tool and really take a few minutes to observe it and to observe yourself when you're using it. Okay, compare it to how you feel and how well the ideas flow because you're using your subconscious mind. Versus the times when you've been frustrated, blocked, gotten stuck, that sort of thing. I want you to appreciate the difference. Okay, so I'm going to give you specific things to do, but that is going to be part of your homework. That's pretty much what I have for you today. I said I would give you homework, and I'm going to give you a tool for getting story ideas to flow from your subconscious mind. Now, I want to say that this tool really works. I'm going to beg you not to dismiss it in any way. Hopefully none of you would have done that anyway. But if you're tempted to, just please promise me that you will at least try it. Do the homework for today, call it an experiment to see what happens, and just see how it goes. This is probably the most powerful tool I can give you for relaxing your for relaxing your conscious mind and letting the ideas flow from your subconscious mind. You can tell this needs to be proofed a little bit. Relaxing your conscious mind is key. So remember we talked about reading and then being jerked out of the story, or driving home on autopilot and not remembering? Well, the real trick to getting information from your subconscious mind is to relax your conscious mind, let your mind wander, as it were, that's what we call it, and then do some sort of mindless action. So mindless action can be anything. It can be walking, it can be driving, it can be washing dishes, taking a shower. Like, have you guys all probably had the experience where you're trying to come up with something? It might be a solution to a problem, or it might just be like remembering somebody's name or trying to think of a particular word, and you're going, oh, it's right there on my tongue, and at the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember it. And then you go like take a shower, and all of a sudden it pops into your head. Well, this is exactly what's happening. You are, when you're sitting there going, why can't I think of it? It's right there. It's on the tip of my tongue. You're trying to force it to come, and you're trying to force it with with your conscious mind. And then once you finally like give up and throw your hands up, and then you're doing something. When I say mindless action, it can just be something you're doing with your body. You're doing something with your hands, you're cleaning, you're walking, any kind of action that you're not really thinking about and having to focus on. And then your mind wanders. And what you've just done is relaxed your conscious mind. When your mind wanders, that's your subconscious taking over, and then the answer comes through from your subconscious. But while you were trying to force it, you were blocking it, right? So this is what we have to do in order to write our stories from our subconscious mind. We need to relax the conscious and just let the ideas flow. Here's how we're going to do it. In a word, journaling. Journaling relaxes your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, and allows ideas from your subconscious mind to flow through. There's a reason that journaling works so well. There's a lot of self-help programs, that use it. And the reason that they do and that it works so well is that it's the person tapping into their own subconscious, identifying the problems they're having, and then being able to fix them. And it's such a powerful tool. And I'm sure most of you have done some kind of journaling at some point in your life. But have you ever applied it to fiction? Probably not. And this becomes a very powerful tool for getting ideas to flow from your subconscious mind, okay? So I'm going to give you some journal prompts, and I want you to journal on them to exhaustion. No, this does not mean journal until you fall over. Please take care of yourself physically. It just means journal until you've exhausted all the ideas and you have nothing else coming through from your subconscious. So this may be just a paragraph or two, but it also could be 20 pages. I mean, it's just going to depend on you and your story. But journal as much as you can and as much as you want. Totally up to you. You are about to learn stuff about yourself and your story that you probably didn't know before, or at least didn't know consciously before. This exercise is going to bring those things out of your subconscious mind and into your conscious mind so that you will now be aware of them in a conscious way. Here are your journal prompts. There are 4 of them. Number 1, how did you first conceive of this story? Now, this can be something you're working on, your current WIP, or something you're going to write in the future, or some idea that's rolling around in your head and you don't know when you're going to get to it. Just pick something to focus on. If you don't know how you conceived of the story, like if you've been thinking about the story for 4 or 5 years and you have no idea how you first started thinking about it, that's okay. For these journal prompts, you're just going to write down what you do remember. So I might write something like, okay, well, I've been thinking about this for 3 years. I don't know how it first came to me, but I do know that I started thinking about the intersection between these two ideas, and then this thing happened in my life, and I kind of applied it, and just put down what you do know about the inception of the story and about what you do remember and how you do know that it has evolved. Okay. And what you're going to find is that as you write some of this stuff down, more and more and more memories will come to you that wouldn't have come if you hadn't started doing this. So that's why you're going to understand more consciously about your story. What experiences brought it to mind, if any? What do you know of the story so far? I want you to info dump onto your journal page everything you know about your story so far, everything you know about the characters, the plot, the theme, where you're going with it. You don't have to know everything, not by any stretch, but write down what you do know. It's very, very helpful to get what you do know down so that you can look at it logically and focus on it and be conscious of it. Because this stuff is in your subconscious mind, but again, if you don't bring it forward into your conscious mind so that you can focus on it, it's very hard to communicate it efficiently on the page. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. What do you know of your story so far? Then, and this one might be the most important, what are you trying to say? Why do you, the author, like as a human being, want to tell this story? Really think about this and journal on this. This is not something most authors do, but the reason you want to tell the story, the reason this appeals to you, the morals that you are trying to get across with the story, if you want to call them that, is actually very important in the telling of the story. And it's not something we usually ask ourselves. So sit with that and journal on it. Thanks for listening today. If this episode helped or inspired you in any way, would you do me a solid and leave me a review? Reviews help other fiction authors find the podcast. You could also recommend it to a writer friend of yours so they can get the same inspiration you got. Remember, you have a story inside you that only you can tell. So get out there and write your soul story, because your readers are waiting for it with bated breath.